damning new report from Senate Democrats is giving us a new window into the cascade of security and intelligence failures that set the stage for the deadly Capitol riot on January 6th. The new report, titled Planned in Plain Sight, details how the FBI, Homeland Security Department, and other federal agencies ignored, downplayed, and failed to communicate crucial threats of violence in the run-up to the riot. The report points to specific threats of violence and clear plans for an attack, citing evidence like internal emails, documents, and posts on social media and message boards, like this message posted on the social media platform Parler on January 2nd, 2021, 2 days before the attack. Quote, "This is not a rally and it is no longer a protest. This is a final stand where we are drawing the red line at Capitol Hill. Don't be surprised if we take the hashtag Capitol." Joining me now is the chair of the Senate Homeland Security Committee and author of this bombshell report, Senator Gary Peters, Democrat of Michigan. Welcome, Senator. So, as they say, what happened? I mean, it almost reminds you of the classic movie scene where all these agencies, police agencies and federal agents, they don't talk to each other. Everybody's got their territory. What was the breakdown from the intelligence going on here? What was that about? How did that happen? How did the officials not see this coming? Were they focusing on the wrong thing? What was happening here?
Well, I think it's important to realize they actually had a lot of information. A lot of intelligence was coming in, which was probably the most striking thing. Despite getting all that information and tips, the FBI, for example, based on our investigation, showed that they had a tipster that said the Proud Boys were intent to kill someone at that event. There were all sorts of tips coming in, and yet repeatedly what we saw was the FBI and the Homeland Security INA department said, well, we don't know if any of these threats are credible. It never rose to the level of being credible. It was really a failure of imagination to realize this could really be an attack. And so they basically completely misjudged this threat and never put out any kind of formal intelligence reports. In fact, there were only 2 informal reports that were put out by the FBI, and they did that the night before on January 5th, but they also had a disclaimer saying this is raw intelligence. Don't alter your plans in any way, but this could go badly. But it was not a formal report. The Homeland Security Department put out no formal reports whatsoever, despite getting this information. And in fact, what was very striking to me was just looking, and we say in plain sight, we had all this open media sources as well, open sources that showed something was going to go on and it wasn't going to be a normal, peaceful type of protest. But even the emails that we saw from Homeland Security, the INA analysis area, were looking at the same time that people were actually scaling the walls at the Capitol. They were debating back and forth, should we classify this as a credible threat? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the report points to a few different explanations, including claims that criticism of federal surveillance tactics during racial justice protests in 2020 could have contributed to this failure. Quote, Homeland Security's Office of Intelligence and Analysis mistakes during racial justice demonstrations in 2020, during which the agency was criticized for over-collecting intelligence on American citizens, resulted in a pendulum swing, after which analysts were then hesitant to report on open source intelligence they were seeing in the lead up to January 6th. What's your take on that? Talk to us a little bit more on that piece.
Well, that's what we heard as their reasoning for it, that they were just very, very cautious. But, I think the expression pendulum swing, this was a pretty extreme pendulum swing when you have all of this information coming in from open sources. You have tipsters reaching out to the FBI and others with some very, very concerning information about what is happening, and then not to put out any kind of report to law enforcement prior to that. It defies explanation in my mind. Clearly, it was a big failure. The other thing that was certainly very evident in our investigation is that oftentimes these agencies all pointed the finger at each other, at the other agency. Well, it wasn't us, it was them. They should have done this. There wasn't clear lines of authority as to who was responsible for reporting and assessing this massive amount of information that was coming in either from open sources or from tipsters and other types of ways in which our intelligence agencies collect information. So I don't buy that explanation. That's what they give, but clearly this was a major failure. And in fact, it's what's troubling is that a lot of what happened here is very similar to what we saw after 9/11 as well, where agencies were pointing fingers. There wasn't coordination. We formed the Department of Homeland Security to deal with that. Clearly, we have a lot more work to do. It hasn't fixed the problem.
Really appreciate that analysis and time that you brought to us, Michigan Senator Gary Peters. Thank you very much.